Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our regular board meeting on December 21st, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Estill County Board of Education boardroom. At this time, I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone, and we always start our meeting by standing and saying the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for that. I'd like to remind everyone there's a sign-in sheet by the door if you'd like to sign in. We appreciate that. Mr. Brock, do we have any revisions to our board agenda this evening?
We do not.
Okay. First on our agenda, we have some action items to take care of. First of all, we have consideration for approval of a Family Resource and Youth Services Center School District Assurance Certificate for 2024 through 2026. Mr. Brock, would you like to address that?
It's just what we do ever so often for youth service centers, and it's just entering into the assurances. It's a good thing that they provide for our buildings, elementaries, middle, and high school, so it's my recommendation that we approve it.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion to approve our Family Resource and Youth Services Center Assurance Certificate. Brian Covey makes a motion. Sheila Samples makes a second. Do we have any discussion at this time? If not, I'd like to call for a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries with a 5-0 vote. Next on our agenda, we have consideration for approval of amendment for instructional coaching salary schedule.
So this will be a little bit different. This is, when we say instructional coaching salary schedule, this actually has to do with our deeper learning coaches, which is a grant that we have through Southeast South Central. So all of the funding for that is reimbursed. We looked at our funding, and I talked to Mr. Norton, who actually oversees that grant, and we want to bump the stipend from $1,500 to $1,800 this year. It's part of the grant that we received, says we have to pay them so much and can't exceed so much, and we have the money to pay the $1,800 this year. It will be reimbursed to the district at the end of the year. It's my recommendation we approve.
Okay. I would like to call for a motion to approve the amendment for the instructional coaching salary schedule. Sheila Samples makes a motion. Tammy Hardy makes a second. Do we have any discussion at this time? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries with a 5-0 vote. Next on our agenda, we have consideration for approval of West Irvin Kindergarten paraeducator position. Mr. Brock, would you like to address that?
Yes, so the numbers for the kindergarten classes at West Irvin are such that instead of having 3 classes, we need to have 4. Each class needs a paraeducator. This would be a position that would just be for the remainder of this school year, and then we would have to look at numbers for next year's kindergarten classes. If we needed 4 positions, then we probably would look at keeping the 4 paraeducators. If we only need 3 classes next year, this position would go away. This would be just for the remainder of this year because of the need for the 4th kindergarten class because of numbers, which is a good thing.
Okay. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the West Irvin Kindergarten paraeducator position. Tammy Hardy makes a motion. Sheila Samples makes a second. Do we have any discussion about that? If not, I'd like to call for a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries with a 5-0 vote. Next on our agenda, we have consideration for approval of a district teacher leader mentor.
So we have the position at the district that's been posted for about 3 years for the guidance counselor with, I think, the 2A endorsement for testing. I would like to maybe take and repurpose that just for the remainder of this year. For this mentor position, we'll look at data and see if it's something that we would want to add permanently at the end of the year, but this would be another one that would just be for this year. And it's mainly to support new teachers and to kind of develop a full-fledged new teacher academy, but most importantly, the option 6 teachers, because we have so many in our district that just have very little experience and that are option 6. it'll be pretty easy for us to look at the data and determine whether it's been beneficial or not, and then we can talk about it at the end of the year.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion for approval of a district teacher leader mentor position. Sheila Samples makes a motion, Carrie Smallwood makes a second. Do we have any discussion about this? If not, I'd like to call for a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries with a 5-0 vote. Next, we have consideration for approval to pay the superintendent the amount allocated per section 6, section 1 of the contract employing superintendent position. When Mr. Brock was hired, I'll go ahead and discuss this. It was stated in his contract that we would pay him a $5,000 stipend for expenditures related to moving and or coming into our district. This is the month of December, so we need to pay that stipend out to Mr. Brock. So at this time, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the superintendent payout as allotted in his contractual agreement. Brian Covey makes a motion. Do we have a second? Carrie Smallwood makes a second. I'd like to call, do we have any discussion about this? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries with a 5-0 vote. Next, we have to review our, or approve our FY23 financial audit. Mr. Brock, would you?
Yeah, we have Mr. Allen here with us his company conducted the audit that's going to kind of go through with us and hit some of the highlights. And if you have any questions, he'll be happy to answer those as well.
Mr. Simpson, can we get him a mic? TV Land likes to hear you.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, yeah, thanks for bringing us in. This is our first year in the school district doing the audit. We do quite a few throughout the state. Right now in the accounting industry, there's a shortage of firms out there doing financial audits. So they lost our game. We're just up the road in Richmond, so thanks for having us in. This is your all's 2023 financial audit ending June 30th, 23. We're on a fiscal year, so it runs from July 1st, 22 to June 30th, 23. An audit that we do, there's actually 3 audits that we do in here. There's what's called a financial statement audit, and there's what we call a yellow book audit. That is based on government standards, auditing standards. And there's also what we call a single audit. That's a federal audit just on certain major federal programs. So on the financial statement audit, the purpose of that is to determine if your all's financial statements are materially correct. Once we gather certain evidence, then we give an opinion on those financial statements. The highest level of opinion is the modified opinion, which is what the school district received, sometimes also called a clean opinion. Basically means what the finance officers here presented to us and to the board throughout the year was accurate information. The second part of the audit, the yellow book part, on that there's 2 parts to it. What we do is we look at your all's internal controls over financial reporting. We see if the controls that are in place are actually operating effectively. How we determine if they are operating effectively is if there are any errors that they are detected and corrected on a timely basis. And then the second part is to determine compliance with laws and regulations. We did not find any issues with that. That's where findings will be from in an audit. The school district received no findings this year. If you want to see a summary of the results of the audit, that would be on page 81. And that page goes through basically what I've said so far, that there's a financial statement audit that results
It's
in
the
it,
last page.
the Yellow Book audit, and then finally, there's a federal audit, the single audit. I'll get to that page. So the single audit is similar to the Yellow Book audit, and that is to determine the internal controls and compliance only on certain federal programs, which are called major programs. Your all's major programs this year was food service, and then COVID money, which is typical for a school district, because that's, I think it might be the largest federal grant right now, besides the food service grant. There also were no findings from that part of the audit. And then final part is sometimes there's certain findings at the school level. So the schools are, their financial processes are called Red Book. From the state, there's certain policies that they have that the schools financially have to abide by. There were also no findings in regards to that. So in conclusion, it was a very good audit. The school district came through without any findings. So that speaks highly of the finance office and the superintendent, how they are actually operating everything, and how they're presenting information to the board throughout the year also. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Does anyone have any questions or any discussion about the financial audit?
Thanks for having us. Head on back to Richmond. Thanks.
Thank you for all your help with this. I know it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, the report's what, 82 pages?
Yep.
So there's quite a bit of information in there, but
But the important thing is that we have a clean audit.
yes, you have a clean audit.
That's
You
the
have no
important
findings.
takeaway from all of this.
Yep.
Okay? So with all of that discussion, I need a motion to approve our FY '23 financial audit as discussed and reported. Do I have a motion? Sheila Samples makes a motion. I need a second. Tammy Hardy makes a second. Do we have any discussion or any further questions? If not, I'd like to call for a vote to approve our financial audit. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries with a 5-0 vote. Next on our agenda, we have, I need a motion for approval of the 24 board meeting dates. And Mr. Brock and I discussed just before the meeting started that we will need a special call board meeting. Sheila brought that to my attention earlier, the first week in January, and we'll get that date out to everyone. And that's to elect our board officers. And so we usually do that right away. And then we'll be able to maybe have on that agenda the DFP.
Yeah, when they get if the LPC meets and does the finding, then we should be able to approve it there too. If not, we can do it at the regular one in January.
So, y'all had an opportunity to look at those. I need a motion to approve those 2024 board meeting dates with the understanding that there'll be some special called meetings along the way. So I need a motion. Sheila Samples makes a motion. Do I have a second? Tammy Hardy makes a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. So your meeting dates are set in stone. Alright, so next we have consideration for approval of the Estill County High School softball team out-of-state field trip in April 1st through the 6th of 2024. So would you like to discuss that, Mr. Brock?
Yes, it'll be during spring break. It's just a trip for them to travel out of state and participate in a tournament during spring break.
Isn't that when seniors go on senior trip?
It is, yep. But I don't think that there was enough to make senior trip this year, so they probably will not have a senior trip.
I think they had 19. Was there like 19 or 20 that signed up?
We did 40 for senior trip this year, only 19 or 20.
Yep.
And signed up.
Okay, so, I need a motion for approval for the softball team to go on an out-of-state field trip on the week of spring break.
So I have a question. Do we have to approve that tonight, or can we have a discussion about that? Or does it have to be approved tonight?
It wouldn't have to be approved tonight. I mean, you all could.
We can do it at the special called
We
board
can do it
meeting.
at the special call one or the one in January. I just know that there'll be some travel arrangements that have to be made in rooms and stuff like that. I mean,
They want to table it
That's fine.
until January.
Okay.
So we will table that at this time. Okay? Okay, I'm moving through. So next we have our consent items. First of all, we have approval for our minutes of November 16th, 2023. And we also need approval of the treasurer's report and payment of bills. Would you like to discuss those, Mr. Brock, or
Well, it's
anything
just
further?
the minutes that we had from November and then just the standard treasurer's report. And we've got to pay our bills, so.
There you go. So I need a motion to approve, those two consent items.
I'll make a motion.
All right, Tammy Hardy makes a motion. Do I have a second? Brian Covey makes a second. Any questions or any discussion? All right, I need to call for a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries with a 5-0 vote. Next, that brings us down to our superintendent's report. Mr. Brock, give us an update.
Okay, so, we still, we've got a lot of good things going on in the district, as I say every month, but it's true. A lot of good academic things going on. Got tournaments coming up this week. Encourage everybody to come out and support our teams, next week, or a team next week for our tournaments. I'm gonna try to make a stop on the way home and watch them play in Berea, tonight if we get out of here in time. We've got our second diagnostic that's been given, official diagnostic. We've been progress monitoring through every month, and I've been meeting with principals about that data and looking at it. I'm gonna let them talk a little bit more about that because they've put presentations together for you all to show you the progress that they've made this year and talk to you about what their goals are for the end of the year. But I'm very well pleased with the progress we've made so far, academically. The culture seems to be going in the right direction in the district as well. I still try to get out and get in buildings, every building at least once in a week, and I think they can tell you they probably see me more than once a week on a regular basis, and get to talk to the students. It's hard for me to believe that a half a year has already gone by. It seems like it's flying, but I am proud of the work that's going on and the work that's happening within our school district. We have had some people retire. We have had some people switch positions within the district, and we can kind of go over those in more detail if you all want to. But overall, we're in a great place. We're actually farther along than I thought we would be at this point, which is a good thing because you all know I set pretty high goals. And it looks like by the end of the year, we're going to make more progress in this first year than I anticipated, which is also a good thing. Yeah, you'll see them going on in every building we have, so. Very proud of the work that our teachers, our staff, and our principals are doing, so.
And is there any, information about our, enrollment, our attendance, or our
So we're
fundraisers?
staying around 91.5 for our attendance, and which is really good. We had an off week a couple weeks ago. There was a couple days we were down in the 80s, but for the year we're hovering around that 91.5 mark. I anticipate that will stay about the same, if not go up some, for this year. So that's good for us as far as funding goes. I was trying to think, there's a couple of things, like I said, with personnel, we can go over that more in detail. We've had some people retire and some people move positions, but attendance is overall good, especially when I talk to other superintendents. We're ahead of them, as far as our attendance for the district for the year. Sometimes it's difficult to maintain those pre-COVID numbers, but we've done a good job with it. And Mr. Norton does an excellent job.
And then, as far as our school fundraisers, there's, an outline of that, if you had an opportunity to look at that. There's several different fundraisers
Yeah.
that are going on at this time, so,
Yes.
okay. Does anyone have any other questions or anything for Mr. Brock from his superintendent's report? So next, Mr. Brock, on our agenda is our principal's report,
So I've always tried to give them a little bit of time to brag, and I've had some positive feedback on that from people in the community. They like to hear the good things that's going on with their schools. I've kind of limited them tonight to their scope. I wanted them to brag about the academic progress that they've made this year. We know they've got a lot of good things going on, but I specifically wanted them to have a presentation for you and for the community, really short, 3 to 5 minutes, on where they started at the beginning of the semester and the progress that they've made and what their goal is for the end of the year. So, anybody
they've got the
particularly want to go
microphone up
first? Or-
there.
All right, Mr. Yost, you're up then. You can go first.
All right. Thank you all again for the opportunity to present with you all tonight. I won't go through every slide on this with you all. I just want to make sure you all have this whole thing for your perusal. If you go to the first slide, Mr. Simpson. This just shows you where we were at overall on our KSA accountability for this past year. Whether you're yellow, red, orange, blue. Overall, we went up from orange to yellow again as a color for accountability this year. A lot of that hinges on the post-secondary readiness indicator and improvement in reading scores from the previous year. But I wanted to show you all just that. The next slide, Mr. Simpson. Something I do every year, I kind of look at, I call them our benchmark schools or our surrounding schools. I compare where we're at. We made improvements against those schools this year. We were 7th in the academic indicators, and then on post-secondary readiness, we climbed again to where we were tied for 4th out of that group. And here in a minute, I'll talk about the gains that we're making overall on academics and post-secondary readiness this year. I think you all will be pleased with the progress that we're making so far this year at the high school. Jeremy, if you'll go ahead and you all can look at these charts. You all have seen these pieces of data. If you'll skip through these charts for me, Mr. Simpson, I want to get to the piece about where we're at right now and what we're working on. So our current state as of December 2023, and this is where I wanted to come back, and this information's on those charts as well. Our reading proficiency on the KSA in 2023, we were at 33%. This year, based on our IXL data, we are currently at 44% for both 10th and 11th grade. For reading for 9th grade, in 8th grade, they were at 28% on KSA. This year so far on IXL data at Christmas, they're at 38%. So we're making tremendous gains in reading so far with our students. Math, last year, 2023 on KSA, we were at 24% proficiency. This year, our 10th grade so far is at 30%, and our 11th grade is at 33%. So again, growth there from the start of the year till Christmas. And math, 27% for the 8th graders last year, and we're up to 30% there. And working with Mr. White, Mr. Brock was kind enough to get us set up with him to work with math coaching this year. And he's working with our freshman and sophomore math classes, especially coming back after Christmas and doing some ACT prep classes for our students. And so we're looking forward to the work he's going to be able to do with our teachers and students to increase those math gains even more than they already are. But the amount of growth in one semester with the laser focus on academics and success criteria and those assessments being rigorous has really helped make some significant gains at the high school through the first semester of 2023.
You didn't put your novice reduction on there, but it was really well too.
Yeah,
It was good.
yeah, I actually was going to talk about that on the next slide.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. You're good. Our novice reduction, we have made some significant gains in terms of reducing our number of novice students. Math, we were at 47% last year on KSA. This year, we are hovering around 35% through the first semester. So we're moving students out of that novice into that apprentice range and then looking to move more into apprentice into proficient. These are our CSIP goals for this year, and I want to make sure you all know that the goals that have been set this year, this is the departments making these goals. This is not administrators sitting behind a desk and coming up with something arbitrarily. Our teachers came up with these goals. And they said that this is what the state averages are, and we were not at the state averages last year, and we want to increase our proficiency and reduce our novice to where we are in line with the state averages in 1 year. And that's a tremendous goal. It means in reading we have to go up 12%. In math we have to go up 11%. And reducing our novice numbers, We do the same thing for social studies, for science, for writing. Again, at this point, our progress monitoring has been reading and math up to this point. But at Christmas, we have our summative finals for social studies and science. So this spring, I'll be able to bring you all the progress monitoring data for science, social studies, and on-demand as well. But if we meet all of our accountability goals, including post-secondary readiness, proficiency, novice reduction, our accountability score, I use that wonderful little accountability calculator they send us, it would go from 60.5 to 74.4, which would put us up to being a green school. And again, our goal right now is to go from orange 2 years ago to yellow this last year to green this year. And I applaud our teachers and our staff for setting lofty goals this year. You know, it's one of those things where I would rather aim high and miss by a little bit than say we're going to improve 2 points and only get that 2. So our staff set lofty goals this year, and our students are rising to the occasion. You'll go on, Mr. Simpson. Again, just what is our focus? It's the same focus you've heard all year. We're using those diagnostics and assessments that are aligned with the standards to identify the learning gaps and can address those where the students where they're at. We've been doing the individualized coaching for teachers, and I will say that Mr. Cornett and Mr. Brock making that suggestion to us early this year has made every bit of difference with our staff. We needed more time to work with our teachers more on a subject level basis to improve what was going on in the classrooms with our students, and that has made a ton of difference for us this year. I had one teacher I met with the week before Christmas break who said, Mr. Yost, when you told me about this back at the beginning of the year, I told you I didn't think this was going to work. And now, looking at their assessment before Christmas, she said, I've had students who I thought were going to struggle who've increased 20 points from their first test to the last one before Christmas because the intentionality that teachers are using is huge. And then focusing on the student growth. Yes, we want all our students to be proficient, but if a kid goes from 50% mastery to 70% mastery on one test, praise them, recognize them, say, we are proud that you grew that much. So I want to close on, for me, what is I'm just ecstatic about. You go to the last slide for me. You all know that every board meeting I've ever come to you all, I say post-secondary readiness to me is the gold standard by what high schools are judged by, because that says we have them ready to go out in the world. It's also a great proficiency measure because to get a post-secondary readiness benchmark on English, reading, or math, you have to meet an ACT or Coyote benchmark. I've not even factored in dual credit on this yet. So this is purely based on the ACT and Coyote academic benchmarks. That says that 61% of our graduating seniors, as of right now, not even including the testing in the spring, 61% of them have met the English benchmark. 54% have met the reading benchmark, and 48% have met the math benchmark. Those numbers far surpass any I've had in my tenure as principal at the high school. The growth is there. And at Christmas of 2023, last year I came to you all and we were sitting at about 65%, and I told you all we were going to get to 80% last year. This year at Christmas, we already are at 78% of our class of 2024 being post-secondary ready. And that's before we do the, that's before we get into the end of program assessments as well as our ATC industry certification testing for this spring. So we've set a goal of having 95% of our students graduate post-secondary ready this year. And I'm not going to sit here and make a prediction for you tonight, but I'm telling you that we are so far ahead of where we were at this time last year for post-secondary readiness that I am confident that we are going to see that number in the 90s this year. Are there any questions you all have for me?
When you say post-secondary readiness, you just specifically are meaning college, not career?
No, career as well. We have, some of those students have already got their certifications as juniors. We have 34 students that have already earned industry certifications from the ATC last year. And we have an additional, that's with Madison, we have an additional 23 students who could gain industry certifications this year. So that number could be 57.
I just wanted to make sure that we made that clear for
Sure.
everyone. So.
Yeah, post-secondary includes academic and career, so.
So a lot of people always have a lot of questions about that.
Sure.
You had at least one sophomore get a certificate because I got it in the mail yesterday.
Yes. So we're really proud of the hard work that our students are doing, our teachers and staff are doing, and I couldn't be more pleased with the efforts of our entire school this year. The focus on academics has been a welcome shift, and it's one that I think you all are going to be really proud of at the end of this year.
Yeah, I'm very proud of you and your staff. You've worked so hard.
Thank you, Mr. Yost.
I guess it's my turn, and Miss Bailey's. Miss Bailey's gonna hand to you the data that is for iReady data at the middle school. Again, I just wanna first say that we know that the data's not where, the numbers are not where we wanna be. But it is, gonna take a lot of hard work, but we're gonna be ready come January 2nd to get in the trenches and really start digging in on that work. We have an amazing staff, we have great students, I know the staff's ready to get to work on those things. And we've had a lot of meetings over the last couple of days to talk about the data, some things that we wanna implement and get going at the middle school. So some of those things that I wanted to talk about before I let Ms. Bailey talk to you all about the data is, we've been meeting and discussing ways to make our WIN classes more effective and purposeful and intentional. So we're looking at students and intentionally placing those students into classes that's gonna make them more successful. Another thing we're looking at is changing up the schedule, making sure that we're placing kids into reading strategies classes. I met with the librarian today. He is very excited about his new role and opportunity at Estill County Middle School. We're very happy to have him. And he's wanting to start teaching some reading strategy classes to our students. So that's a very good thing for our students. Looking forward to working with him. So I'm gonna let Ms. Bailey talk to you a little bit about the data.
Okay, first let me say that we did come up 10.3 points with our KSA data, which labels us no longer TSI, even though that's not on there. I wanted to highlight that because that's great. We are 0.4 of a point from yellow, so our goal is green next year. We're not even talking about yellow. But without further ado, this is our school-wide reading data, and you can see we came up as a school 7%, and the 3 or more grade levels below actually decreased by 9%. Go ahead, Jeremy. Thank you. In math, we came up 4%, but look at the decrease in 2 grade levels below and 3 or more grade levels below went down 5 and 10%. So we're counting that as a big win as well. In 6th grade reading, we have a really good 6th grade class. They showed 4% growth in reading and went down 10% in 3 or more grade levels below. And I can tell you in talking to some of those students, I actually wrote quite a few praise cards because they were so proud of their scores and their accomplishment. They are really taking it seriously.
Before you go on, with that, she mentioned the praise cards. So that's something that we want to implement more into the middle school is recognizing these kids for their growth and rewarding them for that growth.
Yes.
We're making gains, and we want to make sure that our students and staff, we recognize both of those for them.
Yes. Go ahead, Jeremy. Thank you. In 7th grade reading, they came up 10%. They came from 5 to 15% at mid or above grade level. That was pretty good. And went down 13% in 3 or more grade levels below. Go ahead, Jeremy. There was no change in 2 of those categories. In 8th grade reading, they came up 7% and also had a decrease in 3 or more grade levels below at a 4% decrease. And in math, the specific grade levels, they went up 7% in 6th grade and went down 9% in that 3 or more grade levels below. Go ahead, Jeremy. 7th grade math also had 5% in mid above grade and 6% in early and on grade level. So that was pretty good for our 7th grade classes. And both of the 2 or grade level below and 3 or more grade level below have decreased in that area. So those are good things. In our 8th grade math, we had an increase of 6 or 5% in mid or above, and then a 6% increase in early on grade level. Also, that decrease in those bottom 2 categories, which is what we want to see, 3% in 2 grade levels below, and then 7% in 3 or more grade levels below. And that's our that's our iReady data. We will compare all of it for our last one.
One of the things I'm really excited about about at the middle school with the math is, again, Mr. Yost had already mentioned working with Mr. White at the high school. Mr. White has been a tremendous asset to our students here in Estill County. I am looking forward to working with him at the middle school. I'm wanting to get with him and with Meredith and talk about ways that we can implement Mr. White more into our math classes, to where he can actually go into the math classes with the teachers and co-teach with them. So we're going to see tremendous gains in math just from that resource as well. Again, I know looking at the data, it's not where we need to be, nor it's where we want to be. But like Ms. Bailey said, we're going to surpass that yellow and shoot for green. We have high expectations, not only for our staff, but for our students. We're going to be able to show a lot of growth. We've got a lot of work to do, but I have all the faith in the staff and the students at Estill County Middle School, and we're going to get there.
And there's some growth there. You may
Yes.
not be where you want to be, but there's definitely been some
Yes.
growth. Proud of the staff and proud of our students for doing that. Also, that 2 or more grade levels below and 1, you all know as well as I do, that's a direct result is COVID. I'm not blaming COVID. We're past that. We're moving forward. But to see those numbers shrink by those percentages is a good thing.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to seeing them shrink even more by the end of the year. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Thank you. Ms. Howell, Ms. Tasha Howell.
Okay, while Ms. Young is passing out our CSIP, I'll go over the data.
Ms. Brooke.
Go ahead, Jeremy. All right, this is our kindergarten. There is no crosswalk for kindergarten, so I just basically, in the fall, our average score was 339.84. Winter was 365. We had an average increase of 28.74. And from what I was able to tell was that to increase 39 would be the typical growth in a year. So that was pretty good. Let's see.
And you've got 28 of the 39 already.
Yes.
Yep.
That was reading. Let me go back to math. And we got, it was an amount increased of 18.9. So, and the growth for that, 27 would have been a typical year. So we're over half of what we should be. Same thing for first grade. Our average increase was 36.58. 39 is the typical growth. So we've already, in half a year, almost got what we should in a full year. Same thing in math. Our average amount increased is 21.85, and typical growth is 27. All right, switch to second. Our average increase for reading in second grade was 34.7, almost hitting the 39 again, and in math is 20.96. Now, third's a little different. We do have a crosswalk for that, but this year's third graders haven't taken the KSA test yet. So I did this a little of 2 ways. Their average increase was 18.18 in reading and 18 in math. If you go ahead and switch screens, Jeremy. But their reading, their fall novice, winter novice, I was able to, this is if they took the KSA today. If they took it in winter, that's what they would have scored on the third grade part, which they're already better than what they were. The winter apprentice is what you're looking for. You want your novice to be lower than what it was at the beginning, and it is. You want your novice and apprentice to be lower, and your proficient and distinguished, which right here, you can see your proficient, the red one is higher than the blue one, and also in the distinguished area. Now moving to math, you can see there was a big drop in novice from fall to winter. A big increase in apprentice from fall to winter, and some increase in proficient from fall to winter, and not a lot changed in distinguished. And then we've got our fourth grade, if you'll go ahead and switch for me. The way the diagnostic for the iReady is built is, it's saying this is what they would score if they took that test at the very end of their school year. So we took it at winter. If you'll look here at the novice, black is their winter diagnostic. We're already scoring as high as what we did in what they did in their third grade. So, which is a big deal, because given another half of a year, that novice is going to decrease even more. The apprentice, here's where we ended last year. Here's where we started. We did improve the apprentice in math, and you've got the numbers down here also. And we have increased the proficient by quite a bit, that's in reading. And distinguished has went down some since the end of their third grade year. For math, kind of the same thing. They started here. They started on the blue. They increased their novice in the fall, but it is decreasing in the winter. The apprentice has increased quite a bit for the winter. Proficient has increased from the fall, and distinguished stays approximately the same. And fifth grade, we did increase our novice from the end of last year, but it has decreased from the fall. Our apprentice has decreased from the fall, but our proficient numbers are getting up there, and our distinguished numbers are even higher than what they did at the end of last year, and it's only winter. So that's for your reading. For math, we've already decreased the amount of novice. Apprentice, we have decreased the amount of apprentice from fall. Our proficient is our big gain. We have more proficient now, halfway through, than what we did at the end of their fourth grade year. And distinguished, there's not a lot of change there. Does anybody have any questions on the data? I know that was a lot fast.
And I just want to qualify, so like, the apprentice, we talk about, we want that to decrease too, but out of virtue of moving kids from the novice and decreasing that apprentice is going to get higher.
Right.
So then the next step is to bump them into proficiency.
We are going in the right direction.
So you're headed in the right direction, yes.
And once again, not to talk about COVID, but these second, third, and fourth graders or fifth graders were all
Yep.
during COVID,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
So in order to sustain improvement, we've begun implementation of the UFly program for reading. In addition to the coaching that we already have at West, we have a detailed coaching plan ready to begin in January based on UFly. We will continue to monitor progress through iReady to make adjustments as we move forward. Mr. White from Clear Math is also going to be coming to West. He will be coaching 2 of our 4th and 5th grade teachers on perspective and language of math, so we're pretty excited about that. We have a lot of things going on at West. We appreciate having a board that is interested in all the things that we're doing.
Okay, yep. Her data's always spectacular. And we kind of agreed, and I think when we do her data meetings monthly, everything's around the whole kindergarten readiness. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah, I have the small piece of paper is kindergarten readiness, but at this point, that's not gonna tell you a lot. I'll tell you about it in a minute. So our state data is TSG. That's Teaching Strategies Gold. I don't really bring that data to you because it is very specific per child and it's anecdotal notes. So it's hard for me to present that to you. Instead, I'm presenting to you two assessments that we do in-house. This one is called ESGI. That's something that we pay for. It's a program that we set beside the child. It can be on the computer, or the kids can look at something else, and then we put the data in the computer. Our kids never do a test on a computer. The teacher does it with them. So it's very small on your paper, but it's also going to be up here, but it's kind of hard to see there too. I've divided it 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds, and in our 3-year-old category, that also does include our 2-year-olds that have enrolled this year. But at the top, the 4-year-olds is what we focus on as far as kindergarten readiness, and this is the top category. If you want to flip through, like, Jeremy, let's look at September 4-year-olds, this one. So this is what the data looks like, and then I pull it out. This is the teacher's name. This is the number of kids that they assessed, they're 4-year-olds. Then this tells us, how many uppercase letters did they identify? 0 to 6, 7 to 13, 14 to 19, so it keeps on going up. And on the paper that I gave you, I pull out the ones that know the most, the 20 to 26. So that's the range that we're gonna watch grow all year in each one of these categories. So we have uppercase letters, sounds of letters, and lowercase letters. That's identification. These two are identification of letters. And then for math, we have numbers to 20, that's recognizing the numbers to 20. So like Johnson's class right now has one child that can recognize 15 to 20. That was in September. Rote counting, I pull out the 23 to 30. That means they just count. Somewhere they stop between above 23. They can go higher than 23 is what that is. How many colors did they recognize? In the 11, that would be 11 colors. And then how many shapes? These kids know 8 to 9 shapes. And you can go back to combined, so I'll show you what you're looking at on your paper. On your paper, you have the combined, and that's the top category that we pulled out. So this is our 4-year-old at the top. That top one is uppercase letter recognition. So this was September. Here we are in November. We won't do it again until January. We test the kids every 2 months. And really, it takes us about 2 months to get them all tested. So even though it says January, we're already testing the kids because it's such a slow process. So what we want is this number to keep getting higher, the percentage of kids that know at least 20 to 26 uppercase letters and the sounds of letters and lowercase letters. We want that to keep getting higher. The 3-year-old data is at the bottom. 3-year-old data never looks very good, but that is not something that they're actually even ready to do yet. We just get the data, and then we try to track them for the next year. So if you flip to the next page, I included last year's data just because this year you can't see very much of the progress, so that you can kind of see where we end up as we watch them grow. For instance, in the first grade category, for 4-year-olds, uppercase letters, we went to from 16% at the beginning of last year, knowing 20 to 26 letters, to 79%. That's kind of what we expect for each year. We'll end up around that same thing. Almost always, they know 100% of the kids know their colors, almost always by the end of the year. It doesn't actually start out that way. So that's last year's, and you can just see what it'll look like by the end of the year. If you go back to the front page, our goals are there at the bottom. These are our CSIP goals. And we're looking at the number of kids, 4-year-olds kids, that can make the sound of at least 14 letters. We would like to move that from 66%, that's what we were last year, to 75% of the kids. We are focusing on recognizing at least 11 numbers, and that we want to from 78% to 80%. And 11 numbers, it's not in a row, so it can be like number 19, it doesn't matter. And the third objective is, we added this one this year because really this is the developmentally appropriate that the kids should know, and it is identifying uppercase letters. So we would like for that to increase from 87% last year to 89% this year. The second page is kindergarten readiness. This assessment, it looks at everything that we just looked at with ESGI, but then it also looks at Do they know their name? Do they know their address? Do they know their birthday? Do they know where their knee is, their elbow is, their ankle is? Can they look at a domino and put the numbers together? If it's like 2 dots and 3 dots, do they know that's 5? So it's more in depth, and it's a longer assessment. We do that 3 times a year. So right now, I only have the fall there. That's why I wanted to include the ESGI also. So it says ready, 4-year-olds ready, 23.8%. Where it says ready with support, that really means they're not ready. And then the 3-year-old data is at the bottom. It is a different assessment for 3-year-olds than 4-year-olds. So that's why the data is pretty close. The assessment on this is different than the 4-year-olds. Got any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
We have Ms. Mullins that'll be joining us at this time.
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes.
Next slide.
In kindergarten math, we have, decreased apprentice from 93 to 70%. We have tripled proficient scores from 4 to 13%, and improved distinguished 6 times, the base, which was 3% to 17%, and there are no novice in kindergarten math as well. For first grade reading,
Next slide.
we improved our distinguished from 3% to 12%. For first grade math, we decreased novice from 19% to 8%, so we halved that. And we moved our proficient and distinguished. We now have a total of 23% proficient and distinguished from 6%. So it's moving in the right direction there, and those are your primary foundational levels. That's where you're building. You know, if you have holes and gaps in your K1 and 2, you set them up for a really hard journey in 3, 4, 5, and for the rest of their educational career. So our kindergarten, first and second grade teachers are absolutely feeling the accountability of making sure that they are foundationally where they need to be. For second grade reading, we halved, more than halved, our novice from 43% to 18%. We doubled proficient from 8 to 19, and we improved our distinguished from 3% to 12%. In second grade math, we decreased apprentice 87 to 54, tripled proficient 11 to 38, and improved distinguished from 1% to 8%. In third grade reading, we decreased novice by half. Guys, I know I keep saying that, and so many of our schools, hats off to so many, every principal that has really spoken tonight, to hear every one of us talk about the decreases in novice. That is such a lofty, lofty goal to set, and hats off to every teacher, every interventionist, every special education support staff member. That is a huge deal. But we're looking at third grade reading, 42% to 27%, then doubling their proficient, 16 to 30, and moving distinguished from 12 to 17. And in third grade math, they have, what is this right here? This is looking at their scale scores and their percentile. So we're gonna dig into that more with our teachers in January. But look at their third grade math, 52% to 26%, half of them. Proficient distinguished moved from 7% to 27%. Those are individual goals, guys, and I'm gonna pause here to say, I spoke with Meredith and said to her, Meredith had experience.
Hey, the reason is, guys, I cannot backfeed her Google Meet audio back into the stream. Now I've got people texting me going, I can't hear, and then I can't see where she's at, so people will take over
Yeah,
that.
we're good.
Sorry about that, Jess. You was on a roll, you was sounding great.
You're okay, can I just keep going?
Yeah,
Okay, fourth grade reading, decreased novice 35 to 23, increased proficient 17 to 24. And I want you to know right now, in the winter of 23, we have more students scoring distinguished right now than we did on the entire KSA last spring. So what does that tell you for this coming spring? And that was something I was gonna mention a second ago, is that in speaking with Meredith about expectations with the iReady, we only have had experience with math. And experience has told us with math that if you had a really high jump in the winter, it was really hard to sustain that to the spring. And I know that many of you have seen that. Sheila, you've experienced that firsthand, I know. But typically, it's really hard to sustain, and if nothing else, you experience a dip. But with the growth tied to classroom instruction the way that it is with iReady, that is not an expectation that we have. And it's, not only is it not an expectation, but with math, you would take it in the winter and hold your breath until the spring. You had nothing that you could use as an indicator. But with iReady, every single day of classroom instruction tells the story. hit our spring benchmark in May, we should be able to say exactly where we feel like our students are gonna be on a KSA. So we're really excited about that. For fourth grade math, this is amazing. Let me skip down to fourth grade math. Decreased novice from 43% to 26%. Decreased apprentice, doubled proficient from 11% to 38%, and improved distinguished from 1% to 9%. Last year in fourth grade math on the KSA, we had no distinguished. We were heavy and proficient, but we had no distinguished. iReady, which is an amazing KSA indicator, already tells us that 9% of our fourth grade students are distinguished in math. Kudos to Mary Rader, kudos to Meredith for going in and working with these students and preparing them and instructing them. I'm going to go down to, I'm just giving you the overall for right now, but we gave you all the data in case you want to dig in more. For fifth grade reading, decreased novice 48 to 30%, double proficient, and improved distinguished from 4% to 11%. And in fifth grade math, we decreased novice by half, 39 to 16, increased proficient 12 to 20, and improved our distinguished from 0% to 4%. One interesting thing, and if we stop for a second to talk about what are our goals. We've got a lot of goal setting to do with our teachers. Like I told you already, we set goals for our CSIP that we thought were reachable, yet would require that extra jump in the work. And we're already so close or have met some of those goals, which is a wonderful problem, and we're going to spend some time adjusting them. But when we look at our iReady reports, there's an awesome report, which is a projected proficiency report. So it is projecting where your students will be in the spring according to their KSA, like what is their readiness. In the fall, our reading was at 31%. They were projecting with that data that 31% of our students would be proficient. We now have jumped to 36%. Our math has jumped from 26% to 35%. Behind every percentage, however, is an individual child. And the discussion that we had with our teachers in December, we spent time rejoicing over the growth that had been made. We spent time rejoicing over the students from every level who have really, we celebrated every type of growth. But what I have challenged them to do is, I want them to have conversations about every single student like it's their Isaac Mullins and William Mullins and Lauren Mullins. Until we have conversations about every single kid the way that we would want someone to have conversations about our own kids, we don't truly own them. So for us, it has been about building relationships, digging into every child's story, which has involved more than just discussion about academic growth. It involved what's their attendance, what are barriers that Shay with our MRC can help meet. We are really trying to tell the story and build a bridge for every kid so that there truly are no excuses to why they would not be successful in school. And I apologize if you hear my family laughing, they're watching the game. But we are having those types of discussions. Our goals after Christmas are to continue some very specific coaching models with every single teacher. We have implemented simple solutions school-wide in math. We have the reading counterpart that begins in January. We also purchased simple solutions for science. Leah Brown has already started that, and that covers our science tested area, and we have our Hughes and social studies for our fifth grade tested area. We have a very clear plan. We meet and adjust as often as needed, but we are very proud of the growth that we've had since August. We're very thankful for our board for supporting our needs, every need, whether it's financial, academic, resources, whatever it is, you all have been
I was going to jump in, Ms. Mullins, really quick. At the beginning of the slides, I'll just go back very quickly. Okay. So these spreadsheets are available to you. That's if you guys want to use the QR codes. That's what the first set is, using the iReady on or above grade level report, which shows the kindergarten through fifth grade data holistically for both reading and for math. But like what Ms. Banks kind of introduced earlier, that with the grades 3 through 5, because it is our accountability grades, we are able to pinpoint and use 3 specific data points. We can use the on or above grade level report. We can also predict readiness for based off of percentile. But we are in the process of working on that for kindergarten through second grade. There is not a scale score crosswalk yet, but that's hopefully something that we're going to be working on here in the next little bit. Once we have another round of KSA data, we're going to be working as a team to be able to get those numbers in a more definitive, scale.
We've kind of created our own.
What?
We kind of created our own.
We did, but me being a math person, one's an outlier, two's a coincidence, three's a pattern, so I need a little bit more data points to be able to find out that get you some more finite numbers. But those are the two different spreadsheets where you're able to look at the results. So really quickly, Ms. Mullins did an excellent job of highlighting the individuals, but I really wanted to go through and show you. So for like third grade reading, for example, that's what you can kind of look at the graph. That's what, and this was the on or above grade level, but the part that I really loved seeing was how accurate and how close that the scale score and the percentile, that it is very spot on, and it's consistent across all 3 of those different data points. Yep. So that for third grade reading, then here was third grade math. That's what, and you can see very similar in those areas as well. Okay, here's fourth grade math overall, and then fourth grade with the percentile ranking and with the scale score equivalencies. Okay, fourth grade math, very similar here, and I love that Ms. Mullins had, pointed out that especially in some of the areas that we are already exceeding where we were at KSA level at this time last year. This is something that we have actually took. That's what Ms. Banks, I know, is implementing this at West Irvin, and I know that Ms. Beard, we had a data conversation with the math teachers right before Christmas break, and where their math teachers were disaggregating their data based upon these parameters as well, so that they're able to identify the needs of their students walking into January, and we're able to hit the ground running with that. That's what. Anything else you want to add, Ms. Mullins, or does anyone have any questions for Estill Springs?
Thank you, Ms. Mullins. I just had a comment. I know when we brought Mr. Brock on board, one of the things that we talked over and over about was ownership of the children, or ownership of our kids from preschool and kindergarten all the way through high school. So I'm really excited to hear that you all are engaging with the children. You're finding out their story. You're making them feel special. I heard several different times about rewarding them for their growth, and just trying to develop relationships. And, we're meeting the kids where they are, and it's not necessarily about us, it's about them. And so we've always said it's all about the kids. And so I'm excited to see that we're actually taking ownership of the kids all the way through all the way through their school experience. So I myself am really, really proud and excited, and some of the other board members may have some other comments, but I'm really excited. And data is data, but putting a child's face with it makes all the difference in the world. So I'm excited to see you all and the growth that everyone has made.
You know we love those babies, Donna. I really feel like until we look at them through the lens that a mother would look at a child, or that, you would look at someone that you are personally, that you have to personally invest in them and connect to their story to make a difference, because so many times their academic potholes are things that are not based on effort, they're based on a need that's not being met.
Yes.
And we truly feel like if a child does not love school and trust the educators that they're surrounded with by the time they leave us, it becomes almost impossible for middle school and high school to gain their trust. So we take that very, very personal, and I feel like the more we can do in that area, the more we'll also see in those academic areas.
Yes.
Absolutely, we absolutely agree. Did anyone else have any other questions or comments? Did I leave anyone out? I think we may have some introductions we need to make, Mr. Brock, because some of us on the board don't know some of the names and faces that are out there,
So, one of the new, not new, but she's been here a while, long enough to work. Meredith Chandler is the coach that we hired new to the district, and she's working out of Estill Springs. So, and we're very lucky to have her on board with us. All of our coaches are phenomenal, and they've done great work this year. Being in schools has helped principals and supported them tremendously, and she was a great addition to that coaching staff for teachers, so.
absolutely.
And I'm very proud of the work that's going on at Springs as well and across our district. And I love hearing say behind every data point's a child, because it is. You all know I've talked about that a lot. And as much as I love academics and as much as I love curriculum, the principals can tell you when I unrolled my focal points for them at the beginning of the year, the number one focal point was relationships with kids, because that's the most important thing. Because if they don't know you love them, nothing else really matters, so.
I would agree with that. I always say that numbers don't lie. You know, Mr. Brock goes out here and shoots 53s at the game, you hit 25, 50%, but still, it's not a true assessment because you're shooting a lot of shots.
Yep.
However, I love it that Ms. Mullins was talking about, whenever you look at that as that child being Lauren Mullins, well, she's not a Mullins now, but, that's what I want
Yes,
to
she
remember
is.
her at. Okay, yes, she is. Yes, she is. But I think sometimes, it's easy to get caught up in numbers and getting kids to the next grade or what have you, but whenever you truly invested in that kid as it was Lauren Mullins, and you look at it from that lens, it just gives you a whole different take on things, I guess what I'm trying to say.
It takes it to a new level.
It does.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure how many people know Miss Bailey.
Oh, yeah.
Miss Bailey is our assistant principal at the middle school. She's been here since the semester started, or since the school year started. And she lives in Powell County? She lives in Powell County. And so, they're in.
I didn't mean to leave you out. You've just been with us since
Yeah.
July. I
But I don't
apologize,
think
so.
she's been at board
I
meetings.
don't think so either,
I went to
now that I think
graduate
about
since
it.
I delivered to her, but I went.
Yeah, so.
And then Miss Tasha Halcomb just took over as our new Estill County Middle School lead principal. And so she hails to us from Montgomery County, but she looks really good in blue.
That's the right answer.
Our girls are actually winning right now, just got the update from them.
Excellent.
Awesome. And then, Mr. Brock, would you like to introduce our student representative?
Yeah, I'll.
This is his first board meeting.
So, so we have our student representative with us, and he's come to us from band. I think Mr. Yost had tried to get on to him to come a little bit more earlier, but after band finished up, and I'll let you tell a little bit about yourself or Mr. Yost if you want to. We're lucky to have him. I met him earlier, actually last week. Gosh, the weeks have flown by, and Mr. Yost was kind enough to introduce to himself. So do you want to tell a little bit about yourself, or?
I'm Ashton Hale. I'm a senior at the high school, and I come from the band program and from the IT program at the ATC.
Yeah. And was very well recommended by Mr. Yost. I was impressed with him when I met him, but I'm impressed with all of our kids, so I'm a little bit
Ashton,
biased. So.
what grade level are you in?
A senior.
He's a senior,
Okay,
yeah.
I thought so.
And I would also like to find out, too, also one of our apprentices, and does a fantastic job for us.
Yeah.
And then we also have our school board attorney with us today. I think, would you like to introduce yourself?
One of our school board
One of our
attorneys.
school board attorneys.
Jonathan couldn't make it. I'm Cameron. I've been with Jonathan for some time now, and, you know, if you don't hear from us and we stay in the shadows, things are going good.
Yeah.
So,
He,
And-
but we like to show up to these things.
he told me somebody would be coming, but he didn't tell me who. So.
And do you hail to us from Paintsville or
I'm
Preston?
actually from Inez, but
Inez.
work out of Paintsville,
All right.
all over the place. You know, not all the school districts are in the same spot, unfortunately, so
Well, we're glad to have you, and we appreciate you making the long
I
drive to
appreciate
be
you guys
here.
being so welcoming.
We're sorry we locked you out of the front door
Yeah, I called
earlier.
Donovan and I said, well, I thought they were having it in the basement, and he said, I think they are.
So that brings us down to our board member forum. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to bring up or anything they'd like to share at this time?
I emailed you about the garden grants.
I forwarded that to all of the principals, and some of them have already bid on the
And it was
opportunity.
initiated by one of the middle school teachers, Mr. Johnson, so to give him credit for that, he sent me the information, and I forwarded it to him where it needed to go.
Will do. He has been great to work with.
And he was bragging on working here.
Yeah, he loved it.
Mr. Simpson, do we have any public comments?
But I would like to say that back when Jessica said the very last statement, I figured out how to. I made the notes in case the next time we have it. It's a very complicated.
If we don't have something to blame on you every board meeting, I don't know what we'll do.
Twiddle our thumbs when we're sitting here and everything.
Mr. Brock, do you have any closing comments before I call for an adjournment?
I'm just proud of the work we've done so far. Proud of all of our staff, all of our principals, all of our kids, and the difference that they make every day in kids' lives. I mean, I'm proud to be here. I love this place.
Okay, well, we're thankful for you and all the work that you've done. We're thankful for our principals, and I think on behalf of myself and the rest of our board, we'd like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. Go home, be with your families, remember the reason for the season, and we will have boots on the ground and running when school comes back in session. So thank you all very much for being here. I'd like to call for an adjournment at this time. Shayla Samples makes a motion, Tammy Hardy makes a second. This meeting is now